Creativity, the ability to transcend traditional ideas through the use of imagination. Since the beginning of recorded history, creative works have stirred the soul and inspired the masses. What is this magical mystery? How do we turn that initial spark into something tangible? How can we apply it in our own lives? Join me as we attempt to answer these and other questions as we delve inside the creative spirit. Erin Scott is a holistic educator, soul alignment coach, and founder of the Alchemy of Holism. Erin holds multiple degrees, including a master's in holistic science and bachelor's in both psychology and art. Please welcome to the show, Erin Scott. Hi, Erin. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Vicki. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Me too. I always start at the beginning with everybody. Like, what were some of your earliest memories or childhood memories of art and creativity, and how did it start out for you?
Really pretty young, actually. I remember kind of from a very young age, probably 5 or 6, being interested in drawing, coloring, and painting. And I was, I guess, gifted, my parents gifted me like an art class, a painting class when I was really quite young. I can't remember the exact age, but maybe about 7. And people thought I was quite good. I did like little landscapes and birds and animals. And it was just kind of an intrinsic interest. And it just that kind of emergence started very young. And I'll tell you that my father was quite creative. So he was very good with a pen on paper. He was really quite artistic and skilled at creating very interesting short. And he was a geologist, so he wasn't an artist, but he really kind of was. And so I think there's a thread in the family line that's a little bit creative. And my mom too, she was an interior designer. She became an interior designer, but she also painted. And in fact, this easel that's behind me is my mom's from her painting class from like the early 70s. So I think it's, there's just a thread that runs through the family a little bit.
So I see you have multiple degrees and everything. So when did you know you were going to be an artist, or didn't you, or do you, or did you, or when did that all happen?
Right. Well, it's interesting because when I was a teenager, I would do portraits of various rock stars like Bono and Sting and all that. And all my peers and my family all thought I was going to become an artist. So that was kind of the thing that was the assumption that Erin is an artist and she's going to do her art. And in fact, it did transmute into something else. So I went to school and my major was fine art at California State University, Long Beach, down in Southern Cal. But school, I wasn't into school. And it wasn't calling. And so I ended up getting pulled into a retailer called Natural Wonders when I was quite young, in my early 20s. And immediately I got pulled in because they were expanding. This was during a retail expansion. And I got pulled into doing visual displays right away. I was only working for them for the Christmas season. And the visual display work expanded into construction management. And that took me later down the road in that industry into store design. So artistic, what was on paper or on canvas, transmuted into work in an industry that was quite creative.
Yeah, and that's it's not a very, very big field, it's kind of select, there's not a lot of people who do that. I used to do the rock star portraits too, and you said that, I was like, oh yeah, I did that all the time. What artist inspired you? Any artist that influenced you feel, or inspired you?
I wouldn't say, when I was doing the portraits, I wouldn't say that there was a particular art style or artist that was an influencing factor. It was more For me, because it started with portraits. So for me, it was always an investigation into the self and an investigation into the qualities of the form of the face as expressions of the soul. It always was. And it's really interesting that I'm doing the work I'm doing now, because I can look back and find that quite intriguing, that it was the kind of falling into the form and the investigation of the form to pull out the qualities of that person. But that being said, there were artists that were influencing. I mean, I would say like artists such as Matisse and Gauguin were both kind of, I don't know, they had styles that were quite delightful for me. But I think with the portraits, there wasn't really an artist per se. It was more the faces that pulled me into them, you know?
Yeah, and anybody who's ever done portrait, and half the battle is to capture that personality. You know, anybody can do a line drawing or whatever it might be, but if you capture that personality, that's really what makes a great portrait. What is your favorite medium to work in as far as what, drawing or fine art? What's your favorite medium?
Well, it's interesting because it kind of went through different ones over the years, but I think ultimately I landed on, although I've not worked with it in a little while, gouache. So there was something about the fluidity that was like watercolor, but it had a more opaque and a more solid kind of factor to it that was easier for me to manipulate and work with. And I ended up doing a series of paintings several years ago that combined both acrylic and gouache. So I was able to get some layered effect that had some depth, a little bit of a relief, and heavy solid plus, you know, more transparent areas of the work. But it allowed more play. So it was almost the combination of gouache and acrylic turned out to be really what I kind of was really delighted with. So I would say gouache is a good one for me. Yeah.
Have you seen any of those coffee paintings that people have done using coffee? It's almost gouache-ish, if that's a word.
I haven't seen that. I bet that's wonderful.
Yeah, you have to check that out. Now, what's the difference between, like you said, you started out more as a portrait artist, like drawing something, you're drawing somebody's face, you're copying what you see, and then transitioning into drawing something from your imagination, which I know you also do. And when did that happen? And could you describe a little bit of how that might be different from, you know, portrait drawing?
That's a great question, Vicki, because I think, to be quite frank, I'm 49 and I still am working with accessing these deep realms of the imaginal, right? So it's very interesting that you say that or that you go into that topic, because it is different, so different. And the thing with the portraits it's my perception of reality, of course, but it's me really looking at the 3D reality manifested form and just absorbing that and then replicating it. But with the imagination, and that's delightful because it's an investigation into the form, but when it comes to the imagination, I typically, to be honest, as I always work with some element that starts with a photo. So there's always some element of the fantasy work that I had done that is based on something that I've seen that has delighted me, right? That's brought up some wonder. And then I'll create the fantasy around it. So even today, at my age now, I still desire. In fact, I have to tell you, it was so beautifully intriguing that you reached out when you did, because the last several months, 6 months or so, I've been called again and again and again to get back into my art in a more expanded way and actually do stuff for clients that's actually more artistically driven too. So it's interesting because accessing the imaginal realm, which requires stillness and really connection and breaking through any mental boundaries that I have about possibilities, and then puncturing that kind of space and accessing the images and the symbols and the forms that are there is my growth edge. Like, it's really active for me right now. because I want to start creating my life ahead in a really defined way. And I've been called so strongly to work with visuals to do that, like to go in and do it, you know?
Yeah, like a vision board. But photo reference, I mean, everybody uses photo reference. I love the internet for that reason. I mean,
Yeah.
it used to be you had to go to the library, and if they didn't have the books, you had to order them and wait for them to come in. And now it's just you press a button and, you know, Google Images. You've got hundreds of photo reference right in front of you. It's so awesome. So I know you're working on a few decks right now. When you're going to get into this realm of creativity, is there some sort of ritual that you go through, or do you work on sort of a schedule, or what? How do you get into it? What's your your ritual, or how do you get into it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I used to in the past have more of a ritual kind of oriented around, like I'd have to get into the space, but now I feel like my life is a ritual in a way. So I feel like I can really access different spaces of consciousness almost just at will. Like when I will it to come, I can be there. That being said, I do need to feel relaxed, and I do need to feel at peace. Like I need to feel in a good space. And oftentimes, and it's like that for me with the readings too, it's like I need to feel, I don't know, grounded, calm, still, peace, so that I can really go there. It needs to be fun for me. Like I need to be in the space where I want to do it. Otherwise it just feels forced and it's no fun, you know?
Yeah. Have you ever had an experience when you were involved, you know, enthralled in the creative process where you knew that like something magical or something really transcendent had happened?
Yes, actually, yes. When I was writing, so part of my dissertation was a children's book. Okay, so when I took this program overseas, it's the Master's in Holistic Science, which is fabulous, and it's one of a kind. It's this fantastic program based on the holistic nature of living systems, right? So how it operates, the organizing principles. And what I did was I went into the psychological realm and story. So why story is powerful and why story has been existing through, you know, millennia. So my dissertation involved story. In fact, it was on the power of story, because story at the root of the human evolutionary process has lived, you know, in the story of humanity and humanity's growth journey through millennia. So why is it powerful? Why is it here? Why are archetypes so powerful and rooted? What is it, you know? And anyway, part of my dissertation was writing a children's book involving, well, essentially different characters that connect with nature, and in their connection to nature connect with themselves, right? So that when I was writing that book, I lost time. In fact, I can easily say that was probably the first time that I remember totally losing time. Like I would literally, from morning to night, I'd be writing and so involved I'd forget to eat, and I'd lose track of all time on the clock, and before I knew it, the night would come, and it was quite fabulous. So that was pretty delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What has inspired you early on, and how has it changed over time? And what inspires you now?
Oh gosh, many things. Nature inspires me. Awake people inspire me. Connected, awake people. Humor inspires me. Like really having a lightness and an ease and a humor really inspires me. Definitely human potential, like, you know, freeing the mind and getting to the new place, but a new place of peace and groundedness. You know, there's a lot happening right now, and it's kind of just all over the place. Everybody's now exploring their evolutionary process, and it's pretty loud out there. So there's a lot of stuff that is noisy. And I don't know. I think what inspires me is getting to the other side of that, like getting to the place where we're all just having fun, you know, and
Yeah.
living a peaceful.
So I know that art is not my next question was going to be, is art your only form of creative expression? I know that it's not, that you also write and you're creating a deck. How is it the same between the different forms of creativity, and how are they different?
How is it the same would be, there's something that pushes out, like there's something within that's asking to be birthed and asking to be made visual. So there's like this impetus that pushes. They are different though, because as you know, I am no expert at graphic design on the computer. However, I've learned over the years to do certain things. So I have limited, you know, expertise, but it's such a fabulous, you know, using Photoshop is a blast. And so, you know, I created visuals for my website, and I've created different visuals, but pretty rudimentary. I mean, there's only certain programs really that I use within Photoshop and stuff like that. But using the computer, I find is differently satisfying. You get immediate results, which is kind of juicy, which is fun, but it's not the same as putting hand on paper or hand to brush and then working with a canvas, or putting your hands in clay, you know. So there's a experiential reality, I find, to doing creative projects when it's 3D experiential in the moment versus having technology and using a keyboard. It's just I don't know, it's different.
Also with like Photoshop, you can achieve perfection. And right. if you're doing it by hand, it's not going to be. But sometimes those imperfections, that really makes a piece.
Yeah, that's true.
I know you're working on a few decks. Do you want to tell anybody about it, or are you keeping it under wraps for now? Or do you want to talk a little bit about that?
No, I'm happy to do that. One of the decks is going to be kind of an archetypal, holistic deck where it's going to have different components of different, like for example, the druid trees, like the 13 trees and things like that. So it's going to incorporate different indigenous traditions, connections with nature. And I want to bring these together, for one, because I want to create my own archetypal deck, but also because I think within this holistic deck, it would be fun to have kind of breakouts within the deck. So people can if they just want to pull their tree, they can pull those out and, you know, work with that. But that's a long way off. I have a feeling that won't be till summer or something. The other deck I'm working on is actually relatively simple in that it's a small deck, and what I'm calling it is the Way, and it's directional divination, which means, because using the pendulum, I find, can be tricky. Like you have to learn to use it and really know your energy in order to work with it to get accurate information. I wanted to create a deck that would essentially replicate the information. Yes, no, how much resonance is that particular step forward, that kind of thing. So it's probably going to be just 22 cards, and it's going to hopefully help people to connect in to the optimal resonance of what their higher self is wanting. So sometimes we have problems connecting with what our higher self is actually wanting us to do. So It's a matter of connecting. It's really good. Yeah.
And that's ultimately like we have this thing in common where we're also like psychic readers, for lack of a better word. Mm-hmm. And then we also are doing the art. Mm-hmm. And it's like my goal too. I don't want somebody to be dependent on me. You know, I want them to start finding these answers on their own and grow. And hopefully I can help them along on their journey. But I don't want you to always be dependent on me. It's about self-exploration. I agree totally.
Right.
Do you think that creativity can be taught, or is it something innate within us all?
Creativity is at the heart of life. It's at the heart of living systems. It is the emergent participatory quality. It's there. It's like at the foundation. It's the soil within which we all live. So creativity not only is something, I'm getting chills as I'm talking to you right now. Creativity is not just something that we do or that we even access. It's like it's there. It's just a matter of us freeing our own containments and our own blocks that are just human-made myth, really. I mean, that talk about the mythology, right? It's like getting out of the true story, the true aligned story, and we're in this weird kind of limited human expression story, and we create all these limits which blocks our natural creative flow. I definitely think we all have it, and I think the world's going to be a better place once everybody really taps in and lets it flow, you know?
I agree. What advice would you give somebody who's coming up and sort of want to follow in your footsteps, either as an artist or a spiritual teacher or anything? What advice would you give to somebody?
Just align, like get still and honor yourself and honor the journey. I find that a lot of people just doubt, they question, they doubt. They're constantly negating what is happening. They're negating their life, they're negating their circumstances. And when we really understand, I think my number one advice would be to really dive in and understand that everything is perfect. Everything is as it needs to be now in order for growth to happen. So once we actually assimilate that knowledge, then there's an alignment that occurs. Well, impetus for the soul journey is just going to unfold, and that we're going to be able to access like this creative juice that maybe we, instead of it being expressed, it was like spinning inward, you know, to create sickness and fatigue and depression and all this other stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of people are doing that this day in the pharmaceuticals and everything.
Yeah.
All right, here's the big question I'm asking everybody. Where does it come from? Creativity, creative energy.
I think I would say almost the same answer, which is I think creative energy, or my understanding is, my knowledge is, my understanding is that creative energy is the driving force. It is the evolutionary impulse of living systems. That is creativity. And creativity imbues like all these different qualities within it. Like, for example, living systems allow, so they allow the emergence to happen. They don't block it. And they allow the different relational events to occur, so that then there's a meeting within a new birth coming forward. So it's like just from our emitting, just from our own impulse being expressed, then there's all these things that occur. We meet with these different circumstances, relationships, whatever, that burgeons a new emergence, whatever that emergence is. So it could be a song, it could be a course, it could be a painting, a book, or it could be just inner growth of self that's then going to lead to some other, you know, project, or just happiness of self, really.
Or a garden, I was even thinking.
Or a garden.
It doesn't have to be even artistic, you know.
Exactly.
Or
a garden, yeah.
Or a cook, or somebody who's a chef or a cook. Yeah. There's creativity in all of that.
Well, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right.
So tell everybody how they can find out what you're doing, and your website and your YouTube channel. We're going to put links, but tell everybody a little bit about what's coming up and how they can get a hold of you.
Great. So my website is The Alchemy of Holism, and it's thealchemyofholism.com. And it's really about the holistic, that when we are in our wholeness, life really is magic, and it really is. So I offer different services. I do soul alignment coaching. I also do divination sessions with clients. And I also provide profiles. I've created these profiles to help people identify what I call their soul print, or their soul's blueprint, via different indigenous kind of ways of knowing the world, like how they connected to nature. Some of them are ancient, some of them are not. Some of them are newly channeled information, but they do really connect us to who we are. So I have these profiles that I offer, the archetypal profile and the symbolic profile. And yeah, they can get a hold of me at the website. And my email contact is on there. Everything's on there. And then, of course, my YouTube channel is The Alchemist Awakens. So.
Okay, we're going to put links to all that stuff. So, Erin, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been so interesting talking to you. I think we could go on forever, but we got to kind of keep it to a short time frame. We'll be posting everything. It was so nice to finally meet with you face to face.
I know, it was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Okay, bye, everyone.